June 2017, so just over a year ago, I was married. I got married to a girl that I was completely in love with. Things started out really good. We were like a really good couple. We never fought. Just like had a very good dynamic, a very good chemistry. We got along super well. And as far as I was concerned, my life was perfect. Everything was awesome, and I was loving life. So in October, things started to get a little funny. She sort of was different a bit, and she told, we had some conversations, and she told me she wasn't satisfied in the relationship. So, I'm like, okay, where can I, like, how do I fix this? So I'm gonna give you guys just bullet points of the timeline here. So that was October 2017, and for like 4 months, I was just trying to figure out and work out how to make this work, how to be a better husband, how to make this better for her. Christmas morning, she told me she doesn't want to be with me anymore. She left in January. So, and through this whole time, I was like experiencing really extreme anxiety and depression. This was something where it's hard to describe, but it was like my whole life for me had led up to this. Like I had found everything that I was looking for in life. Like apart from Jesus, I've always been with Jesus. Jesus has always been with me, and I was set. As far as like being in the world and living my life, like this was everything that I ever wanted, and I had it. And then it was, kind of ripped away from me. February, I ended up talking to Helena, was the name of the girl, and she has a sister named Jessie. So I ended up talking to Jessie, Helena's sister, over the phone, and she told me that Helena had been cheating on me with, at the time, one of my best friends, a guy I went to college with named John. I confronted Helena about it. That was pretty ugly. She vehemently denied it. And because of my relationship with her and just a part of the commitment I made to her, like I trusted her implicitly. And so went on. In March, I found out definite, proof that this was all true. The affair had been happening since October, and this was what had led to everything. So the interesting thing is, so those are just like the highlights of kind of the timeline and how things went. So the interesting thing is, for me, the most difficult portion was actually the beginning, and the period of not knowing what was true. Because through the whole time, I had made a decision a long time ago that I was never going to say anything negative about my wife. And I was never going to act in a negative way towards her. And so I was holding true to that. But it was creating this tension. It was so difficult to figure out how to show love when I'm hurting so badly. And throughout the day, it was just constant anxious thoughts. Like there was no space. There was no space in between, the attacks that were coming. It was like multiple thoughts per second for, like 18 hours a day if I was lucky, and then I would sleep the rest of the time, and I would wake up and be there again. So that went on for months, and there were a few points along the line where God would speak to me. I would get to my breaking point, and I would just break down. I'd be like, God, I can't do this. I feel like I can't even continue living. Like my body is going to break down. And He would speak to me with a revelation and uplift me and reveal something about my identity, and it would give me strength to go forward. And then it would kind of build up again. And it happened like, I would say 3 times like this. And so with each new revelation of pain, it actually became easier to bear because I was getting stronger. The Lord was strengthening me and building me and teaching me discipline and faithfulness. Because the one thing during this whole time that I wouldn't let go of was Jesus. Because everything in my world had collapsed. I was living a nightmare, like literally my worst nightmare that I ever could imagine, and I was walking through it. But I never was really angry with God or blaming him for anything. There was a lot of asking why and not understanding, because I thought that things were going a certain way, and I thought that God had a certain plan for me, and I didn't understand. And so I would ask him, and he would not answer me all the way necessarily, but he would give me enough to keep going. And I found that he would give me things to help me. Like I found in the early stages that he was giving me the ability to encourage people. And when I encouraged people, I was encouraged. And so I hung on to that and I pursued that. And it was like this kind of way that God started to train me. So I stopped thinking like I used to think in the world, and my focus became on what the Holy Spirit is doing in me and what I can do with it to try to get through this. But it's still a cycle of depression and anxiety, and there was things that I couldn't do. I couldn't look at a photograph because she was a photographer, that was her art, and through her I learned to appreciate it. So after she left, I actually got off of all social media because I couldn't look at a photograph without just being emotionally overcome. Even driving through Saratoga Springs, which is where she was staying with John, I would be a wreck. And the worst thing was if I had to have a conversation with her, even if it was over a text or phone, or worse in person, because I was still in love with her, and the only future that I saw was her coming back to me. And so when I saw her, and it was just like the reality was painted in front of me that that's not the direction this is going, it would break me down. I would just be like a wreck for like a week straight. So fast forward to June of this year, June 2018, I went to visit some close friends in Newport, Rhode Island. They actually have moved back to this area. They were about to come back to New York. And so I went out there to kind of have a last hurrah weekend with them in Newport, because I had lived with them for a year. And that's actually where I was married, at our house in Newport on June 23rd. So I was actually out there for the anniversary. And so that weekend was really difficult. I had said I had been getting stronger, and each blow became easier to deal with, and I was sort of maintaining. But that weekend was just really difficult, and I was getting frustrated. It was coming to another one of those breakdown moments where I was like, I'm just done with this. I don't know. It's just getting worse, and I realized that I had no clarity because I could not see a reality in front of me that it didn't involve her coming back to me. And like, I didn't see a reality where I could survive without that happening. That was the only thing. And so I felt like here I am, I'm like in the jungle I have all the tools I need to get out, but I have no direction. I don't know what to do. I ended up having a conversation with her on the phone that Sunday night. And I aired out some things that I had not completely, there were some things that I didn't say because I didn't want to make her feel hurt or guilty about things. But I found a way to say some things that I hadn't said in a way that I felt good about. And so I did that. And I remember there was a moment where she was trying to like make me feel better. And she said, time heals all wounds. And I said, that's BS, because this has gotten worse progressively. Nothing is getting better, everything is getting worse. I know that's a lie. So that conversation ended. I felt maybe slightly better for having gotten some things off my chest, but not significantly. I drove home the next evening. Still wasn't in a really good place. But on the way home, I'm going over the bridges, I'm leaving the island. Newport is on the island that was the original Rhode Island, and there's a state that formed around it. So I'm just off the island, and suddenly, like, God starts speaking in my heart, and everything that I'm about to describe happened in a moment, but it was all, like, individually perceptible within my consciousness. So this all happened in one, like that. The first thing that he did was he convicted me and said, you are holding guilt over Helena because you are manipulating her to try, because you want her to feel guilty so she'll come back to you to make it right. And that's not love. And that's not forgiveness. And then he showed me why I was doing that. That there was a hurt that I was holding on to that I wasn't aware of and didn't understand. Because I had made it about me and about the outcome that I felt that I needed. So that I couldn't survive if I didn't have this certain outcome. And so within myself, I was doing everything in my power to keep control, to try to affect this outcome. And it was running away from me. And so in that moment, I immediately, I actually shouted, I repent. And I said, I don't want that. That's not love, that's not me, that's not you, that's not what I want. Get rid of it. And immediately I felt a huge, almost like a spike, get physically pulled out of my chest, and a weight fall backwards off of my shoulders, like a 1,000-pound weight. And everything in my world was completely different at that moment. It was that moment. I felt it come out, and I felt it come off, and it was like, the best way I've found to describe it is as if I was walking on the surface of the sun for 7 or 8 months in the heat and the gravity, so long that had become my normal. And then all of a sudden I was teleported back to Earth in normal gravity, and I'm not on fire. And I was like, I'm a human again. Like, oh my gosh. And I felt completely free. And so I was like just shouting worship at the top of my lungs all the way home. Not like worship songs, I was just like free singing. Like, I think people on the highway next to me probably could have heard me singing, which was fine with me. So I was just rejoicing all the way home. But this was different. I said there had been 3 moments where God had given me a significant revelation that, like, got me through something. But this was different because throughout the week, like, that freedom didn't go away. There was nothing that came back in. The root of death was just taken out of me. It was gone. It wasn't there anymore. And I started doing things that I couldn't do before without having a problem. And I actually haven't spoken to her face to face since then, but I've had conversations over the phone. And I told her, basically, I got to tell her this the next day, that I got to basically apologize and say, I said I had forgiven you, and I thought I had forgiven you, but I hadn't completely. And, I need you to know that I don't hold anything against you, and, like, I'm just releasing you and go, and, like, there's nothing between us. Because subconsciously I've been holding on to that, and I've been trying to force her to hold on to it too. So that was awesome, and like, that was fine for me emotionally. I actually, literally today, I talked with her on the phone, just planning out, like, she's going to bring over paperwork for me to sign, and not emotionally affected at all. I can drive anywhere I want. I can look through picture books. And actually recently I've been able to look at photos in a way of appreciating the art of it, You know, and it's not, there's nothing that used to hold me back because of these emotional effects, because it was, none of this bondage is on me or with me anymore. I'm just completely free. And it was something that was not done in a process of time. It was something that was done in a moment when God spoke and he said, look, this is the problem. I said, I don't want it anymore. And he reached in and he ripped it out, and it was gone, and it stayed gone, and it's not ever coming back. Which is, I think, something that doesn't really happen in this kind of situation on the normal. But with God, he's pretty cool. He does stuff like that. And I think I went over 5 minutes, but